Greetings everyone, my name is Anna, hope you guys are all doing well. Today we are going to be discussing Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. I was instantly interested in this book once I heard that it was similar to Mulan, here for it, and then it had fashion, also here for it. Two things that I really enjoy. So this one is based on Maya, who is a woman who wants to be a tailor in this world, which I believe is based on sort of like an ancient China. Women can't really be tailors professionally. Her dad is quite, or was quite, a famous tailor in his time, but because her mother dies, this all happens very early on. I think it might be mentioned in the synopsis. I'm not really sure, but it's like literally the first few pages. Her mum dies and her two brothers or three brothers go off to war. One comes back and he has been injured in the war as well, and so pretty much it's left up to her to look after and provide for her family. One day we have a royal person who comes from the palace and tells her that her dad has been summoned because the king is now looking for a new tailor. The war is over. He wants to show his people that, you know, he's got it. He's the king. He can do fancy things. And she obviously knows because her dad has a drinking problem, hasn't really sewn much in forever, and she's mainly been the breadwinner in the family. Her brother can't take his place because he can't sew to save his life, and so she's like, I must go. So we have a bit where she tries to she dresses up as her brother. He kind of gives her lessons as, you know, how to walk like a man, and she cuts her hair, which, by the way, when that bit happened in the book, I was kind of imagining the bit in Mulan where do they play We Are Men? I don't remember the song they played, but I was like, that was what I was imagining in my head when Mulan like cuts her hair, not her head, oh my gosh, cuts her hair off, and so then she goes off to go and do her things in the palace. Now, all in all, I said a lot, but what I just said literally takes place in like the first 25 pages of the book. And I think that's one of the gripes I had with the book, because essentially I thought the pacing was just a little bit off with the book. I think sometimes we didn't spend enough time with certain characters and also in certain places enough for us to build a really comprehensive picture and sort of build emotion around those situations as well. And so with her family, for example, we got kind of very shallow discussions with them. So when when her two brothers didn't come back from the war, it was sad, but it wasn't like, oh no, I feel very sad. It was, oh, okay, this is gonna move the plot along. And so I did wish that we got a little bit more in terms of staying in certain places and on certain points as well that were brought up. Another thing for me was that I did find that the plot was a little bit predictable for the most part as well. We had characters mentioned being, you know, this guy is quite shifty, look at him doing shifty things, and then he goes off and does shifty things. So I think sometimes there were very obvious points in the book, and I think they were very ham-fisted. The way Maya spoke about it is kind of like, I wonder what this thing does. Would be really cool if it did this, and then boom, it does that. It was that kind of thing. So I think those kind of things were quite obvious in the book, and I wasn't too fond of it because it just kind of made, when things like that happened in the book, it just kind of made it feel a bit childish for me. One other point that was a bit of a negative for me was the world building. Like I mentioned earlier on, it is based on an ancient Chinese world, and I think this kind of goes hand in hand with my first point, which was the pacing in the book, because I was very excited to be in a world that we're not used to seeing, because if you read enough fantasy, you know that a lot of them are based quite loosely and some quite heavily on sort of an ancient or, you know, quite old British or European world. And so having a story that is based in an ancient Chinese world, I thought would be really cool, because with it being based around fashion and things like that, I thought we would get such a more of a vivid world. And because for me the pacing was a little bit off, like I mentioned, I don't feel like we stayed enough in certain places. I think we could have had more in terms of the world building. We did stay a lot in the palace, and I did like hearing about that. And I did really enjoy hearing about the fashion side of it, because I think Elizabeth Lim writes very beautifully in terms of her description. So, which probably sounds like I'm contradicting what I've just said, because I said her world building could have been better. But in terms of her describing the way Maya, sews the clothes, the drape of the clothes, the colours, I really enjoyed how vivid her writing was on that point. And so because we didn't stay too much in the fashion portion of the book, it kind of goes off to be a bit of, travelling the world or travelling their land a bit, and less of the fashion. I was kind of disappointed in that, because the fashion aspect of the book is something that drew me in the first place. I think as a fantasy book, this is one I think has a lot of potential, and the cover for the second book has been released. I think this might be a duology, which I'm not mad at, because I don't know how much more you can do plot wise for the story. I think if it was a trilogy, I'm not sure how I'd feel about that, but considering that it might just be a duology, I would probably pick up the second book when it does come out. Now, in terms of characters, I think that Maya was an interesting one. She's very sweet and very cute. I think at times could be a little bit naive. I really liked Eden, who is the sorcerer in this world. He is kind of like the king's right hand man ish, and so Maya and Eden kind of have this terse relationship in the book. I would have really loved to have heard more about Lady Sarnai. Lady Sarnai is the betrothed to the emperor, and so she seems like a very complex character. So I'm really hoping that in the second book we get more of her, because she is the daughter of the person who waged war against the emperor, and she has very strong opinions about certain things. The way she's written, it seems like she's very capable. She can hunt, she's very smart, she can kind of tweak things, and she can see what's going on with people. And I really wish that we didn't brush over her as a character so much, because I really wanted to hear more about her. She sounded very interesting, so fingers crossed we get more Lady Sarnai in the second book. I think overall this is great if you're somebody who is looking for a book that is a little bit different to the usual European based fantasy. It's nice to be in a different world that we often don't get to hear about. So if you're kind of looking for something that is an easy read, easy to get through, then I would definitely say pick up this book. But I would like to get into a spoilery section just a little bit, because I do have a few thoughts. So in terms of spoilery things, I thought for me I was quite frustrated about the romance in the book, because it was very obvious who the romantic interest was going to be, because Maya had issues with Eden that didn't really seem to make sense. He would kind of poke her a little bit, but it's kind of like, oh, Eden is terrible. And so the way he interacted with her didn't really correlate to the reaction that she gave. And so it was very obvious that was going to happen, and they were going to kind of be love interests. When they did get together, it just felt very like, I hate you, now I really love you, where do we go from here? So that was very quick, and again, I think that relates to the pacing issue that I previously mentioned before. In terms of the fashion aspect, like I mentioned, so essentially, like I said, there was a competition to choose the royal tailor for the emperor. After that competition ends and Maya is named the royal tailor, which he finds out, so basically, obviously, this is the thing that confused me, because I don't know what Maya was expecting to happen. Like, was she going to live her whole life dressing up as a man? I think at some point people are going to notice. There wasn't really much forethought to Maya's plan, because she just decided to live her life this way. It was very odd, because it was kind of like, I'm going to save my family and that's it. There wasn't really any future planning in that regard, which I found quite odd. But after that competition is over, the king finds out that she is actually a woman, but she also, it turns out, has some magical abilities. She's able to use this magic scissors that allows her to make garments, and it helps her make them a lot quicker, or whatever it is. And so essentially, after the king wipes everyone's memory, because they find out that she is a woman, but he wants to keep her for her magical talents. I think he kind of collects magical people, because Eden is kind of like a jinn. Eden's actually, yeah, he's a genie. Yes, something along those lines. I think it's a genie. And so the king likes magical things. And so Lady Sanai asks her to create these 3 mythical dresses. And so the later half of the book is Maya and Eden going off on this quest to pick up these materials for this magical, or these 3 magical gowns. So even though it's to pick up items to make these dresses, it wasn't really much of the sewing. It was a lot of adventuring, which I don't mind, if not for the fact that it didn't really feel any stakes in the book. I think what I would have liked, and what I kind of thought was going to happen, was that the competition was going to be them going out on these quests and getting these items. And I think what would have made the stakes a little bit higher for me is that if along the way certain tailors died. I'm a bit grim. I like my fantasies quite grim, so perhaps this just really wasn't one for me. But I didn't feel like the stakes were very high. So when she went to do these tasks, and you know they were meant to be these life-threatening tasks, I didn't really feel that sense of urgency. So yes, I did give it 2 stars. I will read the second one. I didn't hate it completely. I think it still has a lot of potential, and so I'm quite interested to see where the second book goes. Hopefully it redeems it. And I'm hoping The Only Way is up from 2 stars, but we will have to see when I do end up reading it. So if you have read it, please let me know, because I haven't really seen too many reviews from the people that I follow from this book. I think I haven't really heard many people talk about it, so I would love to hear some feedback and some thoughts on this book. That is it for me. That is my review of Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. If you enjoyed that, please give it a thumbs up and feel free to subscribe. All of my socials will be linked below. That is it for me today. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.